sitting there saying, I read this headline. It says, elephant gets drunk, runs amok, slays 5. I thought to myself, my God, that sounds like about 10 guys I know. You know, if they had the chance. Bring it up, bring it up. Let them hear it. There ain't no way to escape. By the way, tonight's show will be particularly aesthetically satisfying for those students of contemporary existence, such as it is. Keep a straight face, though. You're not allowed to laugh. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Absolutely. You're not allowed to laugh at life. This is a very serious proposition. No way. In fact, I received a letter written by one of those nice ladies that use green ink on light blue stationery. And that's one of Shepard's great rules, by the way. People who use green ink on blue stationery, or who use blue ink on green stationery, or lavender ink on purple stationery, or purple stationery on pink ink, etc., those are people one must be careful about. They'll write angry letters to the editor, and they tend to wear space shoes and have cats. I mean, they often are vegetarians, too. And, oh, yes, the worst type. And I know one old lady, by the way, that still wears her Barry Goldwater button. Absolutely, proudly. And nevertheless, I got this nice letter, and she said, "Dear Mr. Shepard, I don't like to offend you. However, I found some of your remarks the other night so amusing that I actually laughed out loud, which is something I don't often do. And I said to my husband, Charles, this young man doesn't realize." I said, "Well, you know, what do you mean I don't realize? I'm probably the only..." Can you imagine writing a letter to Buddy Hackett, apologizing to him that you laughed? But nevertheless, I don't. This is not a thing to be laughed at tonight. Not at all. This is an aesthetic evening, and since yes, absolutely straight. One of the things about our country that must be pointed out: we come from an entire race. No matter what your religion is, you come out of the American soil, which is the soil that has spawned the great evangelists of all the world. I'm not talking about specific I'm talking about evangelism as a concept. And evangelists just don't laugh. No, you have a sacred mission. And as a comic, I can tell you this, friends: if you get up before a bunch of used car dealers and you do a satire about used car dealers, you are met with a deafening silence. If, on the other hand, you do before a convention of used car dealers a scathing satire of dentists, they'll roll in the aisles. Why? Because they feel that bringing the used car to America is a sacred trust. It's not funny. If you do a satire of used car dealers in front of dentists, you're going to get a hell of a big whoopee laugh. But you do things on orthodontists I have known, and no way, no humor, because this is a sacred trust. Every man today believes that he has got a sacred charge. I mean, insurance men believe that they are bringing security. They are bringing everlasting life to people. And you don't laugh at somebody bringing everlasting life, do you, Barney? No, absolutely not. It's only the other guy that's doing this cockamamie ridiculous scheme. Hi, George. It's only the politicians that are knaves and fools in our society. Not insurance men. No way. And so, would you please, if you will, a little elegant aesthetic music to set the tone of tonight's performance, please. Now get up there, big. Hold it, that's enough, that's enough. Hold it there, Barney, that's it.
That's a nifty new car. How much? Oh, super. Including tinted glass? Oh, disc brakes? White walls? Reclining buckets? How about an electric clock?
Don't let a lowball sticker price fool you. The true cost of a new car is the price the way you want it, not stripped. The Datsun 710 comes with all those extra standards, things other cars charge extra for. Plus full carpeting, electric rear window defogger, full wheel covers, and lots more. And don't forget Datsun's great gas mileage, low maintenance, and high resale value. Take a test drive in the Datsun 710 two-door sedan, four-door sedan, hardtop, or the new five-door wagon soon. When you compare costs, true costs, you'll see that Datsun really does save.
Yeah, go in and see your local New York, New Jersey, or Fairfield County Datsun dealer. That's your Datsun dealer. Ah, nice. Well, all right, then let's get on with the serious part of the show, which, of course, we all know are the commercials. However, sometimes seems that way. Well, you notice how quickly Dick Cavett face changes when he goes to the commercial. Oh, his face gets very official. No matter what's going on before that, you notice Johnny Carson in the middle of when they switch to Ed McMahon in the Alpo commercial, he changes. Oh, this is a serious point in time, to quote any one of 17 different defendants. But nevertheless, I must say that all of us have been victims from time to time of the most trivial incidents that have set the tone of our whole life. Well, I got a letter from a guy, says, Shepard, what's the worst gift you ever got in your life? He said, I ask you this. He says, because I'm planning to give a friend of mine a gift, and I want to lay a bad one on him. You know, I hate to be an arbiter of evil, in a sense. I really do, but I do recall. It depends on whether you call a gift bad just because it's rotten, or a gift that has ultimate evil meaning. That's different. I mean, that's different. See, if you give, say, for example, a guy a folding canoe, and he loves the folding canoe, and one day he's out there rowing across Walden Pond after a Thoreauian a period of meditation, and the damn thing folds up on him out there in the lily pads, it then becomes an evil gift. Correct, Emo? I just point out to you that what seems to be benevolent can often turn into something unbelievably the opposite, right? In fact, all evil approaches you on the subtle cat's feet of benevolence. True evil, as opposed to trouble, which just happens. I mean, trouble is not the same as evil. I mean, let's face it, evil is a long-term process. Trouble is something you can call the insurance man about, right? Okay. Do you notice one insurance company now has behind their insurance ads on television, they have the sound of the cavalry coming in over the hills. You know, ta-da, 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 you hear the bugle blowing, and you can just see those guys coming down to save the poor little band of pioneers beleaguered behind their wagons. And that's what you get when you pay your insurance, of course. You get those good hands that cradle you like that. And we're on the subject here of good hands. I'd like to put you into the good hands of these chefs at the Blue Ribbon. How do you like that? If you're looking for a really good red, wasn't that smooth, I'll tell you. And I don't even have an Ed McMahon to sit here and laugh inanely at my inanities. But I do like to recommend the good folk at the Blue Ribbon. For those of you who don't know the restaurant, it's a superb German-type restaurant and some of the best German food in the town. And by the way, if you think of German food as heavy, I would suggest you'll completely renovate your ideas and do a 180, as we say in flying, when you visit the Blue Ribbon, because they have the best of German food. If you haven't had an elegant Wiener Schnitzel lately, friends, I would like to recommend the Blue Ribbon, and this is the time of the year for it, you know? A Wiener Schnitzel. You know what Wiener Schnitzel is? Wiener, of course, refers to Vienna. It's schnitzel performed in the Viennese fashion. There are several schnitzels. Trail of gun. If you would like to say, for example, have a sauerbraten that will bring tears to your eyes, I would like to recommend the Blue Ribbon. It's at 145 West 44th Street, and right here in the theater district. If you're coming to a show or something, it's right in the middle of the theater district. You just walk to the nearest theater, that's all. It's on 44th Street, right off of Times Square, 145 West 44th. And they're open Monday through Saturday until midnight. And they have a great lunch, they have a great dinner before the theater, and they have a nice, elegant snack menu for after the theater, including elegant apple pancakes done in the German fashion with a little cinnamon, you know, really nice. So this is the Blue Ribbon. By the way, among other things, they have a tremendous selection of imported draft beers, including one of my favorite draft beers, by the way. Is not an imported beer, but a very good imported American beer is Pryor's Light on draft. Have you ever had it? They have both light and dark on draft. So I would like to suggest the Blue Ribbon, 145 West 44th Street, Monday through Saturday, 11:30 until midnight. They're not open Sunday, and I would suggest you call for a reservation. It's JU24898, right? Before the big iron gate closes behind you. You're left standing out there in the rain eating a Nathan hot dog again. I mean, you know, not that I got anything against a Nathan hot dog, but when you got your mind set on Wiener Schnitzel, ain't no way a Nathan hot dog's going to do it. Do you agree? No way. Please hit them again. They're still quick.
There's no trick to selling cheap clothing at cheap prices. There are plenty of schlock stores in New York. But it's awfully tough today to give you good quality clothes at prices that still make sense. I'm sorry, but I speak as a pro. There's no such thing anymore as good clothing at low prices. You've got to give up something if you want to stretch your buck. Gramercy Park suggests you give up the fancy storefronts and nonsense that goes with the old way of buying clothes. If you're in the market for a new suit, a coat, or slacks, and you want to get the best quality you can for the dollars you spend, go to Gramercy Park Clothes in the Factory Building at 61 West 23rd Street. Go upstairs through the big iron gate. You'll see a lot of clothing with today's look. Clothing made for a man who likes good things. Gramercy Park is open to 7, on Saturday to 6, and on Sunday from 10 to 5. The address is 61 West 23rd Street, New York.
Oh, wasn't that touching? This is W... Come over here, I'd like to give you a touch. This is WOR New York. And for those of you who collect truly awesome commercials, I mean, commercials that rise like a giant stately galleon out of the sea of ordinary mire and muck of commercial scrabbling. Those of you that collect those that come on in a cosmic style, listen to this one. Turn your tape recorder. You got to put this in your collection. Oh, listen to that.
Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer presents the most honored motion picture of all time.
That ain't a movie. That's an event.
With the Wind. The monumental drama and great love story.
As history marches across the screen,
of the American
millions die and the flames of Atlanta light up the darkening sky.
Vivian Leigh, Leslie Howard, and Olivia de Havilland,
well-known American Southern fighter Leslie Howard.
Magnificent motion picture ever made. David O. Selznick's production of Margaret Mitchell's immortal classic.
Immortal? Wow. That's a long time you're talking about, buddy.
Gone with the Wind. Rated
That's
G.
the way with
General
immortality.
audience.
Gone with the Wind. Oh, wow. Wasn't that fantastic? Wow, now there's a commercial now at red carpet theaters everywhere. Check newspaper listings for a theater near you. Da-da-da. My God. I mean, you just can't stand in the way of an avalanche, can you? Even as a kid, when I first saw Gone with the Wind, I wondered how the heck Leslie Howard got by trying to pretend to be a decadent Southern planter. You know, they all speak with that elegant Oxfordian English, of course. Just consult William Faulkner. He'll tell you anytime. I'm a Snopes fan. I like old Flem Snopes. You remember Flem Snopes? Isn't that a great name? Flem Snopes. You never heard of Flem Snopes? Yeah, well, Flem Snopes, yeah, well, he's out of Faulkner, see. He's like the character in the novel that I'm working on. A guy named Toad Horny. Great name. Old Western civilization type, bringing it out there to the poor benighted people of Utah. Old Toad and his family. The Horny Boys. Great crowd. Would you please hit another one?
Today we're in the health and diet section of the Barnes & Noble bookstore, where you'll find books for your body, books for your mind, and books to help get your whole self together.
Honey, here's that book I was telling you about on how to stop smoking. Maybe if we both read it, we can stop.
It says here they stick needles all over your body to make you feel better?
What is it you want to do? Tone up your body, improve your health, increase your self-awareness? Whatever it is, you'll probably find the book you're looking for at Barnes & Noble. We've got books that can teach you the art of sensual massage, how to live with an ulcer, how to take care of your feet, how to think yourself thin, how to exercise, and how to relax. You'll find all this and more at the Barnes & Noble bookstore, 5th Avenue and 18th Street in Manhattan, the country's biggest bookstore of any kind, and probably the most interesting.
I believe you have a book on how to relieve stress and tension. I must have that book!
Barnes & Noble, and you thought we only sold textbooks.
Only in America do people believe they can get the book to solve every problem in the world. I'm going crazy! How can I get a book on being sane? No way, friend. No way, friend. Those that are born a cuckoo bird will remain a cuckoo bird forever. Forever, forever, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Which reminds me, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, you're going to hear General Spots. Sing it, friend. Sing it, I say, sing it out. It's number 117 in the Blue Book. Someday you'll own. Someday you'll own. Follow the bouncing ball. Sooner or later, you'll own the Generals. But here's the text of today's little sermon. If you need a long mileage tire, buddy, get General's 40,000-mile dual steel radial built with a smooth-riding radial ply body. Fly right. 2 strong steel belts for puncture protection. See what radial tire performance can do for you, your life, your car. Mount dual steel radial tires at your local General Tire headquarters. Ask for Joe Coarta at General Tire Service, Jericho Turnpike in lovely Smithtown. And sing proudly. Sooner or later, you'll own Generals. Yeah, yeah. Sooner or later, you'll own Generals. Oh, you're not ready? Oh. We're always ready. I knew you'd get it up there. Listen to this guy.
New low prices.
Can't you see this in the second act of a cockamamie musical? Listen.
Make them clear.
The chorus on their thing. Carol Channing on a big velvet swing.
We've marked prices this way.
Yes.
Red for low every day.
It's a brand
That's Robert Preston out there dancing, sir. When you hear this line.
Our grand buys them are green.
Oh, that's a
Weekly
killer.
specials, we mean.
Oh, yeah. How come the weekly special dancers come out? Right. Grand Union. Oh, yes. Some Grand Union buys at Grand Union this week. USDA choice corn-fed boneless beef roast, $1.18 a pound. Grand Union half-gallon fresh orange juice, 39 cents. Golden ripe bananas, 15 cents a pound. Win the golden banana at Grand Union. Oh, wow. Whee. oh, yes. Let's get back to life. What do you say? We'll get back to life. Somebody, wrote to me, I ought to squeeze in a little show once in a while on our program. Don't you think so? I've been asking the sales department permission, and it's not been easy. It really hasn't been easy. They're truculent. But I just thought of a fantastic pun on the word truculent, and I better not use it. Oh, no. But nevertheless, I must say that the letter this writer wrote to me did touch a chord. I do recall there was a gift once that proved to be my undoing. You've often wondered why some guys go on to become Johnny Carson, bright, clean, fresh-faced, living in Hollywood off the fat of the land, and eternally talking to Victor Borge, the blessed, the Richard Corys of our world, right? You've wondered about this? And how it is you turned into Miniver Cheevy? You don't know who he is. Well, that's because you're illiterate. However, that's right. That's why that is. That's why you don't know. But nevertheless, Minneberchibi, who ruled the day he was born and shook his fist at the heavens, this is the common lot of man. And I'm a kid at this point. This is a kid story. I'll have to, and it has nothing to do with nostalgia. It is a story that deals with good and evil, as most stories should deal with, because they're the two things that face us constantly in our daily life, right? Some opt for evil, some opt for good. Some opt for the great gray area, where there is no good, there is no evil. That's right. There's only danger. Well, all right. I'm a kid, and I had this uncle. Now, everybody has an uncle that gives you gifts. Comes over. He always lays a goodie on you. And the only reason you want to see old Uncle Tom or Uncle Fred is because he's got this thing. So he always gives you, right? And usually he gave me very innocent things. Actually his name was Uncle Tom, and he only came around quite rarely, very rarely. He would show up, maybe every 3 or 4, 5 months at the outside. There's always in every family an outsider that just doesn't hang around the gang. Of course, the usual family. Every Sunday, they all get together like a bee hive and keep yelling about the same old problems they've yelled about for 100 years, and the moiling mess and moil and toil and trouble of family life. But Uncle Tom and Aunt Gwen, they were not part. You rarely heard me mention these two because they operated outside the family orbit. No one knew why, but I now, at this point, know. Had I known my family and that whole crowd, that whole bunch that I was a part of at a certain age, I too would have operated out of it. I stayed under the porch most of the time. Well, Uncle Tom only showed up occasionally. When he did, he came bearing gifts. Probably because he felt conscience because he hadn't shown up at the last 17 family Sundays, that kind of thing. So nevertheless, on this particular occasion, old Uncle Tom showed up, and he had his usual gift. He gave my kid brother a rubber dagger. Now, you've seen rubber daggers, right? Well, right away, that bugged me because I had always had a desire to own a rubber dagger. They were great. They're great-looking daggers. It's a rubber one. Has a big black rubber handle, has a silver blade painted, so it's a great-looking dagger. And my package was very heavy, but small. It was a heavy package. He says, and here's for you because you're older. I says, oh, okay, I figured, anytime they start giving you gifts when they say you're older, that means you get a rotten, dull gift like a tie, right? You have crossed into a land that you'll never come back from when people start giving you socks and stuff for Christmas. Socks and ties. That's the never land of Daddiesville. So anyway, he says, you're older. I said, oh, yeah, well, okay, thanks. So I opened this thing up, figuring it was going to be something really dull, like, who knows, a set of matched shoehorns. Great stuff like that. Well, I couldn't figure out at first what it was. It looked like a block of metal with a clip on it, some kind of a big, heavy brass spring clip that held two halves of this block together, and it had sticking out of the end of it 2 wooden handles on each half of this block. In other words, it was a block of metal split down the middle that was held together with a clip, and each half of the metal had a wooden handle. And I looked up at him and I says, what's this? And instantly my kid brother, he had that look of total victory. See, he'd want a rubber dagger, and I got this doorstop. And so, I looked at the rubber dagger. How many of you still feel bugged by the fact that other people always get better gifts than you do? There's no question about it that there is a group of people who get great gifts. Then there's the rest of us. The rest of us. For example, I have had people give me, for some curious reason, one of the most unusable things that I've ever owned in my life. I've never used one of them. Have you ever used a money clip? You know that I have 4 unused money clips. mean, I'm thinking of, beating them into sinkers so I can use them when I go fishing or something like that, I don't know anybody that uses a money clip, but they keep making them. I guess they make them for gifts. They don't make them to be used, But nevertheless, I had this block. See, so I said to Michael, Uncle Tom, I said, what is this? He says, well, why don't you look in the box and read the instructions? He didn't say it like that. He said it like an uncle. Look in the box, read the instructions. Why is it all these fools that I always have to deal with never read the instructions? Well, at that point, I pulled this little piece of paper out of the box. It came in a box. The box had nothing on it. It just said, there was. And in the instructions, it said, remove the clip. It says stage 1. Remove the clip. You will notice then that the mold is in 2 halves. It was a mold. Well, this was the first mold I ever owned. In fact, the last one. And it says, at that point, when you remove this clip, you are then ready to begin molding your own set of lead soldiers. It was a mold to make lead soldiers with. Have you ever had one? Well, I did, and I'll tell you, it's fantastic. I mean, you just take this mold, and 2 sides come out, see, and it has a little hole on the top, little hole like a little funnel, see, and in fact had 3 little holes on the top. And when I pulled it apart, there were 3 like hollowed out soldiers in there. They were hollow, you see. You know how mold is. One soldier was standing there, was like a revolutionary soldier, see, and he was standing there and he was holding a musket. And the next soldier, which was in the middle, looked like the kind of soldier that you always see in movies starring Marlon Brando when he's pretending to be Napoleon. With a horse. He's sitting on a horse there with a cape and all that stuff. And the third soldier was a World War I soldier with one of these flat helmets, like they have with a pie plate and all that stuff. And there he was standing there, see, at attention, and he had this pack on his back, and he was holding this gun down at his side and all that. I said, fantastic, how do you make them? And my uncle says, well, read the instructions. And it says, at that point, you're supposed to take talcum powder. You take talcum powder and you sprinkle talcum powder on the inside of the mold. Apparently that makes it so it doesn't stick. So you sprinkle talcum powder in there. It says then you take common lead, which you can easily melt in any available, easily usable saucepan, and you just melt this lead and you pour it in. So allow a few moments for it to harden, and then carefully pull the 2 halves apart. And there you have your magnificent soldiers. At which point, you are supposed to trim off the soldiers. With a penknife, you trim them off, and then you can paint them, and you've got these great soldiers. It's fantastic. Of course, my mother doesn't know what is about to happen. She's in the kitchen. So she's in the kitchen doing her thing, which was making Sunday dinner because they were all over there at that time. So instantly, I said, oh, this is fantastic. Well, I ran down in the basement. Now, the old man used to do a thing he called soldering. You ever have a father that did a thing he called soldering? And he had this great big chunk, a long piece of lead that he used when he soldered. Now, I knew it was lead because it had stamped all over on the outside. It said lead. It said lead, So I could figure that's lead. So I knew right away, instinctively, I knew I better not do this around in the kitchen where the meatloaf was being made. See, so I go down in the basement. Now, down in the basement, like every basement, there were a pile of tires in one corner, some old furniture in another corner, the old man's workbench piled up with tools and jars full of bent nails and stuff, and all kinds of string and wire that he said you never know when you might need it. He had all that stuff. That was the you never know when you might need it corner. He had all this stuff piled up. Well, he had also down there a hot plate. Okay. Now, that hot plate he used to heat things like shellac. He would heat on this hot plate. See, it was one of these little electric hot plates. So I get down there and I take this. He had a pot down there, see, that he he used to use for mixing paint and all. I put this thing on. I turned it up. I put the lead in there, and by God, it melted. Have you ever melted lead yourself? Well, it just melts like, and it has a kind of a scum over the top of it. Took about 10 minutes. My kid brother's standing around. He's bugged now. He's got this rubber dagger. I mean, what can you do with a rubber dagger? I mean, but I had a thing that you really did stuff. So I'm down there with the lead and I'm melting it. And I finally get this thing all done. I says, here, Randy, grab the other end, see, this mold. So we both are holding this thing. And I start to pour the lead. See, well, first of all, lead does not pour like water. The first thing you learn, it has a different specific gravity. And the, let's say, the surface tension of lead is very different. It pours like Billy be damned, I'll tell you. Shoop, and it goes all over the floor and all over. My kid brother had the first lead Ked tennis shoe in the neighborhood. His entire foot was encased in lead. He's, yeah, but at this point, when you're really involved in something you dig, pain means nothing. See, so we're pouring this lead in there, and finally it overflows. I said, okay, that's enough, Randy. Quick, hold it. Don't mess with it. Now hold it tight. It says you hold it very carefully so it does not crack. And we waited, and then it congealed. I put the pot back on the fire, and we slowly, with a screwdriver, pried the two halves of the mold apart, and a whole new, magnificent world lay before us. These look great. You know, when you melt lead, before it oxidizes, it looks like silver. It was shiny. It was fantastic. You know, lead you think of as gray. It looked beautiful. And so we trimmed them off, and we had our first 3 soldiers. And that began, let's put it this way, that began the work, which later became infamous, of the Cleveland Street Lead Foundry and Manufacturing Company, which set into business that afternoon down in the basement. We spent the entire afternoon melting every conceivable piece of lead we could find. We melted the old man solder. We were down in the basement making lead soldiers. Well, the next day, when Schwartz discovered this whole fantastic new world which had opened up before us, that began, as I might say, one of the few times in my life of true celebrity in the neighborhood. I owned the molds. I owned the molds, and I knew how to do it. And from that time on, it was gravy. And speaking of gravy...
I'm Fran Allison. On nights when you have trouble falling asleep, what are some of the things you do to help?
Well, I sleep with my head at the other end of the bed. Sometimes that helps.
I eat.
I do relaxing exercises, starting with my toes, and I'm usually asleep before I reach my shoulders.
On those occasional nights when you have trouble falling asleep and exercise and counting sheep just don't seem to work, try Compose. Compose simply relaxes and unwinds you so your body is able to fall asleep more easily. Of course, by falling asleep more easily, you're going to feel better the next morning. So take Compose on those occasional nights when you have trouble sleeping. If you're not satisfied in any way with Compose, mail Compose the box top and they'll send you double your money back. Remember, the more easily you fall asleep, the better you feel the next morning. Compose. Use only as directed. It's guaranteed.
There's a way to keep your car going great and going far. It's called the Chevron way. Chevron dealers want to be the ones who keep you worry-free. So take the Chevron way.
Make the right turn into Chevron. Your Chevron dealer is an auto specialist who can offer all the things your car needs to keep it running smoothly, like Atlas steel radial tires. They'll give you surer traction, smoother handling, and a safer ride than ordinary tires because of their strong steel radial construction. Now's the time to see your Chevron dealer about the Atlas steel radial 70 tire.
And take the Chevron way.
Well, you know, the way things creep up on you, it's just terrible. You know, every one of us have had a moment in our lives when we have been, let's put it this way, we have had the world in our grasp. Well, for one brief instant on Cleveland Street, I was it, because this craze of making lead soldiers out of molds somehow, I mean, you know, it has to be a very basic human emotion to see something emerge magically where nothing was prior. I mean, to see a lead soldier standing there on a horse. He's actually standing on a horse. The horse is, is standing, and he's got a cape. He's got a tricorn hat, and you made it out of pouring lead into a mold out of these, nothing-looking stuff. It's a magical thing. It really is. And I don't know whether do girls ever feel that kind of emotion? I don't know. The fantastic wonder of seeing something there that never was there before. Well, Flick and Schwartz and me and Bruner, Jack Martin, Stanley Roper, we began to be fantastic lead scroungers. Now, it isn't easy to get lead when you're about 10, right? You just don't go down to the hardware store and buy 7 pounds of lead or 7 pounds of solder. And ever since this time, by the way, I have felt a warm feeling in my gut every time I pass a department in a hardware store where it says solder. I love to look at solder. Rosin core solder, acid core solder. You too? Yeah, no way. That's a male thing. Solder somehow has a fascination about it and a satisfaction about it. And of course, lead is not solder. Solder is a combination of lead and tin. It's a mixture. But we were using pure lead. Now, where do you get lead? Well, we took to hanging around junkyards, and we would scrounge and steal lead plates out of batteries, old batteries they threw out. And you can get lead that way. Did you know that? Of course you do. But it smells like hell when you boil it. If you start boiling lead plates out of batteries, whoo-wee, you can smell out the whole house. All that sulfuric acid and stuff. But we began to make, every night, soldiers by the dozens, by the hundreds. But they all looked alike, and that began, after a certain point, it was merely repeating, but we couldn't stop. It was like eating potato chips. I mean, you just can't stop. So we must have had about 500 soldiers of each type per each. I mean, bags of them. And one night, down in the basement, Flick changed the whole course of what had been up to this point a very innocent and a very, let's say, almost an idyllic phase of our life. Now, I might point out, and I think this is the way even things like Watergate happen. I mean, one day, one guy makes a suggestion, everyone says, hey, what do you say? Oh, my God, who knows what lies in that direction. Anyway, we're sitting down in the basement, in Flick's basement, with all of our stuff laying out there. And by the way, we were taking turns as to whose basement we would do the cooking in and make the soldiers in. So one night it would be at Schwartz's, one night it'd be Flick's, another night it's Roper's, and this night we're down at Flick's, and we're making soldiers. And Flick says, hey, listen, he said, did you read last month's Boy's Life? Now, I don't know whether any of you ever read Boy's Life. Did you ever read Boy's Life? I read Boy's Life religiously. In fact, I read it more than I read anything but was religious. I mean, me and Dan Beard used to go out vicariously and search for moss on the north side of trees every month. I remember one piece in Boy's Life when I was a kid that practically put us all out of business. It says, make your own birch bark canoe. You ever try to make a birch bark canoe when there are no birches living in your neighborhood, and you try to make it out of oak tree bark? It just doesn't work. We figured bark is bark, But nevertheless, he says, did you read what was in Boy's Life last month? And Schwartz says, what was in there? He says, well, there's a thing in there about how you can make a mold, and you can make anything you want. We don't have to have this mold. We can make another kind of mold. And Schwartz says, out of what? He says, out of a potato. Schwartz, a potato? He says, yeah. He says, you got any potatoes? And with that, Flick says, yeah, we got a whole bunch of potatoes. We got a whole sack of potatoes here in the coal bin. He runs in, he gets out this great big potato. He says, here's what you're doing. According to the piece, you just cut the potato lengthwise. You cut it down, zap, one cut. Now you got two halves, right? He says, whatever you want to mold, you just put in the middle of one half of a potato, and you squash the potato together, and then you drill a little hole with an ice pick down to this thing you want to mold, and you got a mold. You just hold this potato together, and it'll mold. Schwartz, oh, come on. Flick says, yeah, you can redo it. He says, we believed everything that was in Boy's Life. So, yeah, you can redo it. Schwartz says, well, let's try something. So Flick says, what do we make? Well, we weren't going to make another soldier. We had soldiers coming out of the garage. So Flick says, wait a minute, I got something here. He looks in his pocket, and he takes out a penny. He says, let's try that. And he puts it on the potato, and he squeezes it together, holds it real tight, and we put a hole in it with the ice pick. We pour the lead in. He says, wait a minute, no, let me, and you could smell the potato cooking. You actually could, because you know when the lead goes down, it's hot, see, and it actually cooks the potato for one little brief moment. He pulls it apart. My God, a perfect silver lead penny. I mean, Lincoln was practically singing the battle hymn of the Republic right there. It even had the date. Everything was beautiful. It said 1 cent. E pluribus unum. In God we trust. And the idea hit all three of us simultaneously. And that night, we gave up making soldiers. And we began to make quarters. For about 3 days, we made quarters in the basement, just for kicks. And at the end of the 4th day, Schwartz said, we got all these lead quarters. Gee, they really look, and they look beautiful. They look exactly like a real quarter. They really do. That's what, I can't tell you how beautiful they look. Schwartz said, what do you say? We try one out. And 10 minutes later, we are down at Oschenschlager's, and we're looking in the candy department there, and Schwartz says, give me one of them Butterfingers. And Flick says, I'll have a Milky Way. And I said, I'll have a Hershey bar. And old Oschenschlager leaning over there, you know, he's got these big, thick glasses on. He had a white apron. And he says, all right, he says, how about the money? Come on, pay. He says, that'll be 20 cents. Schwartz hands him a lead quarter. He just put it in the machine with boing, gave Schwartz a nickel back, and we were out on the street. Oh, my God, what a... We hid under Schwartz's porch and ate our candy bars. A half an hour later, we're down at George's bowling alley. This time, we're buying spicy detective magazines with lead quarters. And that began my life of crime. For over 3 weeks, we bought everything in sight with lead quarters, and never once did anybody say anything. And then one day I'm sitting at supper, and the old man says, hey, did you read this? And there in the paper it said, counterfeit gang, Kit's neighborhood, counterfeit 25 cents. We never again touched it. But do you think I'm past the limitation clause? This is WOR New York. Stay tuned for In Conversation.